Welcome to This Week in the Lab, and we have a bunch of stuff this week. I've been to the flea market, and it was a good week at the flea market. It was a good week at the Home Depot too for paint. I'm not going to go too much into that. You've seen us with this every week. It's really cheap, and we'll take as much of it as we can. So we'll get right into the flea market scores this week. We're going to do some cool stuff in the shop this week too. I just want to throw that out there, so hang around for that stuff. First thing I want to show you, I got this cool toolbox. This is like a sort of like a machinist toolbox. It's missing the front panel, and I got this pretty cheap because one of the drawers, this one I've gotten taken out already, was hung up in here. So I got to work on that a little bit. This, I'm pretty sure, is a military toolbox. It's really hard to see, but I can faintly make out some of the old stamping on the back there, just barely. I can't read it though, I just make out letters. But this is pretty cool. This drawer doesn't match the others. I think they've made this drawer to replace a broken one, and that might be the issue with this one, because it does seem to be a little wider. That's why it's not fitting, so I'm going to have to attend to that. But this will be a cool little toolbox, machinist toolbox. I may even make a wood panel for front of that, but I got that pretty cheap. I found a nice little tack hammer. Got this, I think, for a couple dollars. Been wanting one of these for a while at the shop to get into some hard to reach places, and this one's magnetic, so you can actually put your tack on it and get it where you need to go. Another one of these dreadnought files. They're also called Vixen files, and this is exactly why they're called Vixen files. This one is actually a Vixen brand, and people just started calling them Vixen files because this brand made the best ones that I know of. This one's in a little rougher shape than I normally would buy, but it's last week I picked up one and it was a flat file. This one is actually half round on this side, and it's really loaded up with stuff, but I think it will clean up, and I will sharpen it like I showed y'all last week on how to do, and hopefully we'll get a good serviceable half round Vixen or dreadnought file out of that. These Malco tool here, and what I used to work on a crew doing gutters, and we use these to crimp downspouts when we would have to make custom length downspouts. So I actually have a set with this configuration, and what I think I'm going to do, these are in good shape, is I think I'm actually going to reconfigure, take these outer two off, and just have a smaller set that just does one crimp, and to get into some tighter places with those. But these are still pretty good. I think those were $1. Guy was giving out these little paring knives. Apparently it's worth $5, but so that's going to be a little scraping tool, I guess. That's a freebie. This toolbox had a few Allen keys in it. We'll throw that in the drawer of Allen keys. There's another little cool file I picked up. It's got a safe edge on this side, meaning that there's no teeth. You can go right up against something. But it's not a flat file, it's actually angled down. It's like a knife file. And this edge is very small, and it has file teeth on it. This one's in good shape. I don't think this has ever been used, and it's a Simmons, made in USA. It's going to be a good file for the shop. We've been needing a bevel here at the lab for a while just to do some simple layout and marking. So I found this one at the flea market. I think this was 50 cents. It's a Stanley. Nice bevel. It is a plastic handle one, but this will do great here at the lab for that. Nice gouge here. I kind of collect these old chisels and gouges. This is a Buck Brothers, and I do confess I've already cleaned it up a little bit and done some sharpening on that edge. But it was in pretty good shape. It does have a crack in the handle. I'll have to fill that. But I really love these old wooden handled chisels and gouges. I think I paid $12 for this, and it's going to be well worth it. It's a good American made tool there. And we got two more things. I found a 1962 motor's manual. Eventually I'll have the whole set of these at the shop. I'll take these to the shop because I do work on some old cars. And these were really good books. I like these motor's manuals. And the last thing I got was brand new in the box buttonhole scissors. And as a maker, and I do costuming too, but here in the lab we actually have some sewing stuff, and we make a lot of stuff. And these are brand new. You can set these to cut buttonholes, and they will always cut the same length buttonhole when you set them up right. And these are brand new in the box. These were sold by Sears. They're Hearthside, and they're made in Germany. And I just thought those were really cool for $2. I paid for those. And that's it for flea market finds this week. So we'll go jump into some stuff in the shop. Alright, so got this wire kit from Harbor Freight. I think these normally sell for around $40. You can always get a 20% off, I think always get a 20% off coupon if you go to their website. You can print it out, so you can take a little bit off of that. This one was on sale, and I used the 20% coupon. This thing is a pretty good buy, I think, for what's on it. The wire doesn't seem to be of too bad a quality. I really like this container that it's in, this little rack. It normally sits up here on the shelf beside these two, and there's a box of triacs and some junk there now. The problem with this, when it sits up there, is it only fills about this much space. And we have this much space that it's not filled. And I don't want to buy another one of these because it'll have the same wiring, and we just don't need that. Over here, we have some more wasted space with wire piled up. So I'm thinking I'm going to build another one of these to sit beside it, move some of that wire off of that other shelf, tidy that up a bit, take up the room, and have a nice fixture sitting beside this one. And normally I would just build this out of sheet metal. I would go to the shop and I use my brake, bend some sheet metal, weld it together. But I think I'm just going to stay here in the lab today and not go back to the town and build this one out of wood. It'll obviously, I'll lose a little bit of space in here because the wood will obviously be thicker, but I'm going to cut everything the same dimensions as this, and it should sit right next to this one without any problem and look nice. And I'll probably even put these dividers in with some holes drilled in it for the wire. I might label it. So anyway, we'll start working on this. Alright, so I've done my measurements, and we're going to saw a few of these boards here. It's going to take one 1x6 and one 1x4, and maybe some little pieces for the center. And I have to say, I find this a little ridiculous. As most everybody know, we're in the United States. These boards are just pine. They're just common pine boards, made in Sweden. I have absolutely nothing against Sweden, and I don't really have any problem with importation of products you can't get in your country is perfectly acceptable. But I do not understand why we are importing pine boards. I guess we can't even cut our own lumber now in America. So I did find that kind of just a little ridiculous, I think. But that's just my opinion. So it is okay if you have a different opinion, and I hope it's okay that I don't have the same opinion as you if you have that opinion. So nevertheless, we're going to cut these boards and start working on this. Now this thing's made in China, and it's not, I mean, it's from Harbor Freight, so the dimensions are a little odd on it. And we use imperial in America, as most everybody knows, but even measuring this piece in metric doesn't come out to any kind of real measurement, so to speak. So this thing, the one I'm building might be just a touch off, but I can't stand to do this. It's not just kind of a real measurement, either metric or imperial. So this one's going to be just a millimeter or so taller than the original, probably. should be all the boards to put it together with. You know, the basic cutouts. And we have to cut an angle on a couple of these. Alright, I've got them cut at the angle, and what I did is I got everything lined up and I just shot 3 little nails in where there's going to be nails anyway, and I'll be able to pop these back apart pretty easy. But that let me run them through the table saw and get them both exactly the same. And it's also going to allow me, I'm going to go ahead and drill my 3 holes for the dowels that'll hold the wire, and they'll be perfectly lined up with each other. If I was machining this, I would have clamped these 2 together and machined them together. So I'm not sure if that's, my father was a woodworker and knew a lot about this. I'm not the best woodworker. I went the way of metal. So I'm taking this type of holding something together straight from that. So there might be a better way. Comment and tell me if there is. But this will work fine for this, I know. I just don't know if it's actually the correct way. So I'm going to drill these holes in here. And I'm using regular bits, and you can see I've got a little bit of bust out on the other side. I do not yet have, of all the tools I have, I've never invested in a set of brad point bits. So feel free to send us some. That is on the list of stuff to get, because we are doing a little more woodworking as of late. I'm going to have to pick up some of those, but these will work fine for the time being. A little bit of bust out I'm going to turn to the inside. This is pine, as you can see. It's kind of sticking to the bit. Just enough pine sap in it still to be sticky. So there's the 3 holes for the dowels. Now we'll just pop this apart and assemble it and measure, and I think we'll put some of those pieces across with a couple of holes. I'll have to see what my configuration of wire is going to be as to how many holes to drill and whatnot, but I think this is going to work out pretty good. Alright, so I got these popped apart using one of these flat type pry bars. These are extremely handy just because they're so flat. Actually, my first experience with one of these is I used to keep bees, had a few hives, and this is the exact tool they sell as a hive tool to help pry your bee frames out with. But these are the exact same thing. These are pretty cheap, but extremely handy just because they're so flat. So I just popped this apart and drove the brad nails out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the busted out areas in, because that way you won't see them, since we did have some bust out with those regular drill bits. And I'm also going to turn this edge that I have lines on in. Not that we couldn't sand all that off. We're going to sand it after we're done, I'm sure, anyway. But I'm just going to start assembling this. And I'm not going to put this, I'm not too worried about it being structural. I can put some braces in the back, or I might put hardboard on the back of this if it is wobbly. I don't think it's going to be. So I'm not going to put any biscuits or dowels in it. I am, however, going to put some glue on it before I nail it. And I'm using this Gorilla Glue. It works pretty good. Another thing I'm not going to do on this is, this board it's not a full 3.5 inches on the top, so I had to cut this one down. But instead of cutting it at an angle here to match the front, this little bit of gap here I'm not too worried about. So I just didn't want to go, that's just me being lazy and I want to go through the effort. The same way with the bottom. There's going to be just a slight bit stick out right there, and I don't think I'm going to worry about it. In fact, on the bottom, this one you're going to have a recess. On the bottom it's going to be a little bit of stick out, and I might just go over that with a sander and knock that tiny bit off if I feel the need. So just going to put a little glue on this. I'm going to turn my cut side back just in case there's some issue there. That lined up pretty nicely there. Get over here when my air hose will reach. I've got the air compressor sitting outside so the wife doesn't have to hear that upstairs. My air hose is a little short. Nail in there. Pretty good there. Go ahead and put this bottom in next. This board is slightly bowed, so I'm going to have to be forced to kind of turn that up because I'm not going to be able to pull that out of it. And I want this to sit flat. And looking back on this, what I should have done, I wasn't thinking, instead of putting this in between on the bottom, I should have cut the bottom short and ran the bottom piece, and maybe the top piece too, but especially the bottom piece on out. But this is not a super heavy duty thing I'm building, it's just a wire caddy. It will be fine. Because this is bowed, I'm going to line that back corner up pretty nice. And then I'm going to line this front corner up. Since I cannot, with these small nails, I'm not going to be able to pull that out. So try to pull it out, but it's not going to happen with this. And these are 18 gauge brads I'm using. Just small little brads. Once again, we'll be fine for this job. Essentially that is it. Looks pretty close. And I think the wire we have for this is on a little bit bigger spools. So I can just get 2 of these in with this added, and it's going to work out perfect. This will hold 6 of these. And these spools are actually a little smaller, so because this is just sheet metal too, if I put a board in here, and I might just put it right on the front because this doesn't have to be super nice either, but the little bit of board that sticks in across here, if I decide to put that in, will be fine because these spools are a little smaller and will be out of the way more. So now I got to cut the dowels to go in it, and I don't even think I'm going to have to strengthen it up. I do think I am going to sand this down a little bit because it does look kind of ugly. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. And I'll show you the finished piece when I'm done. Alright, there it is. Done. Everything fits nicely. We drilled holes to suit the wire that we had to put on there. Did this one, because of the thickness of the board takes up this thickness, we had to put this piece on top. This one lined up good with the other one. It was a good spot for it. This one we actually moved up slightly to suit these different size rolls that are in here. This is going to be a good addition to house more wire and get it off of that other shelf and out of the way. We'll free up some space on that shelf, take up some space that was wasted on that other shelf. And I've got I drew out the plans to this. You should always draw your plans and keep them when you build something, in case you need to go back later and you don't have the original to look at. If I want to build one of these at the shop, I've got my plans actually in a small book that I carry with me most everywhere in case I have ideas on the fly. So if I'm at the shop and I want to build one of these, I don't have this sitting in front of me, I can build one there too. Same way with your wiring schematics and stuff that you come up with. They're all in my book too, all my diagrams and things. So yeah, there it is. Looks pretty good. I might stain it. I might find a gray paint and paint it. There's probably some paint in our massive collection of Home Depot mismixes that will match this. And so there you have it. Simple as that.